And at 10, Professor Pig. Professor Pig originally debuted in the alternate reality story of Batman number 666, which I love, as a corpse, which I love even more. However, he was introduced as a recurring character in 2009 in Batman and Robin number 1. In Batman Reborn, Laszlo Valentine was an extreme circus mob boss until something turned him into Professor Pig, leading him to begin funding his scientific experiments by selling narcotics to the criminal underworld. Because of course he did. All in all, he's an extremely disturbing villain and makes me think about why people aren't actually afraid of pigs. If you put me in a room with this guy and his pet pig, I would be scared of both. Professor Pig, if you couldn't already tell, wears a pig mask despite him spelling pig incorrectly in his name, along with a butcher's apron and what at times appears to be some form of thrown together surgical outfit, like if he was trying to get a last minute Halloween costume. It's freaking weird, okay? And he ends up brainwashing and controlling various people, and then he ends up calling them Dollatrons. Honestly, I don't know what I would do, okay? I would just run away from this guy. And at 9, Hush. Thomas Tommy Elliot was a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne, and was also born into a wealthy family. The two often played a stratego-esque minifigure game together, and Tommy taught Bruce to think like his opponents and to use their abilities against them in order to win, which proved useful later on when he became Batman. But as a child, Tommy exhibits a genius-level intellect due to his capability to think and plan strategically. Tommy despised both his abusive father and his frail, submissive mother, who came from poverty and willingly endured every bit of abuse dealt to her so that her and her son could keep their lavish lifestyle. When Bruce's parents were killed, Tommy resented him for inheriting his family's fortune. Yeah, that's actually a thing. Just as he had hoped to do with his parents' money. But when Tommy's mother recovered from cancer, she disowned him, subsequently cutting him off from the Elliot family fortune in retaliation for a continued relationship that he was having with a girl named Peyton. As a result, Tommy murdered her by smothering her with a pillow, while Peyton killed their lawyer and destroyed Mrs. Elliot's new will, so he would get the money. Hush later goes on to hold a grudge against Bruce and even learns that he's Batman thanks to the Riddler. And at 8, Hugo Strange. In the post-crisis continuity, Strange was reintroduced in the Prey storyline as an eccentric private psychiatrist enlisted to help the task force assigned to capture Batman by providing them with a psychological profile of the vigilante. Basically, this guy is like a messed up Spencer Reed. You're welcome, Jordan. While brilliant at his work, Strange is depicted as being quite equally unbalanced. He becomes so obsessed with the case that he starts actually wearing a replica Batman costume in private, convinced that he is the only one who understands the darkness that drives Batman. According to Commissioner Gordon, Strange was abandoned as a child and grew up in state homes. A bright kid, but he apparently had a hell of a temper. Nobody knows how he put himself through college and medical school. Strange was raised in an orphanage on the Lower East Side of Gotham, not far from the infamous crime alley in the heart of the part of Gotham known as Hell's Crucible. So you know, he's gonna have some problems. As an adult though, he became a professor of psychiatry at Gotham State University, but had his tenure suspended after he was using his position to promote a series of increasingly bizarre genetic engineering theories. I just kinda wanna know what those are. And at 7, Nobody. Morgan Ducard was the son of Henry Ducard, a world-renowned assassin, and Felicity Strode, a spy sent to kill Henry, who instead fell in love with him. I have to say though, that's the dream. Having a love so strong that even your assassin can't kill you, that's goals. From an early age, though he did not see him often, Morgan idolized his father. When his mother was contacted by the people who had hired her to kill Ducard years ago, telling her that if she failed to fulfill her end of the deal that they would kill her son, the young boy stabbed his mother to death with a kitchen knife. His father saw what he had done and appreciated Morgan's devotion to him, deciding to train his son to become an assassin like him. Ah, family bonding. Several years later, a young Bruce Wayne came to France hoping to train under Henry Ducard, but Bruce drew more attention to himself than he should have, and Morgan was sent to assassinate him. The American and Frenchman fought each other, but due to his prior training, Bruce ended up defeating Morgan and surviving the attack. This is when Morgan grew a hatred for Bruce, since after surviving, Henry decided to train him instead of killing him being Bruce Wayne in this scenario. Nobody would then go on to train Bruce's son Damian Wayne and even was killed by Damian. And at 6, the Court of Owls. They are a violent cabal who uses architecture and murder to yield political influence throughout history. Their legend is told only through whispers and a nursery rhyme that bears their name. To carry out their interests, they employ a breed of highly trained assassins known as Talons. The leaders of the organization appear to be human and wear owl masks on their faces, whereas the rest of the court on the other hand are mutated and appear to actually be human-owl hybrids. Like, Their owl-like distorted faces, long claws, and their eating style seemingly prove this, unless they're just really into roleplay. The Court of Owls takes notice when billionaire playboy philanthropist Bruce Wayne announces plans to rebuild and reshape Gotham City for the future. He is then sentenced to death by the group, and their assassin, the Talon, attempts to kill him during a meeting with politician Lincoln March. They struggle at the top of Wayne Tower, and the killer survives a fall from the top. Batman then begins to investigate, and he discovers that their society has secret headquarters throughout hidden rooms in every building established by the Alan Wayne Trust. So, yeah, a little personal. Halfway through in at number 5, Clayface. Basil Karlo, the original Clayface, was an actor who was driven mad when he heard of a remake of his classic horror film that he starred in, Dread Castle, and that he actually wouldn't be playing the lead role. Adopting the persona of Clayface, the villain from one of his old films, he became a serial killer that was targeting the cast and crew. He was eventually stopped by Batman and Robin, but later, Karlo would actually be imbued with the powers of Clayface's Preston Payne and Sandra Fuller. While we may know about this character, the actual mysterious part of him comes from his DNA and his ability to copy a person's DNA. This actually ended up causing Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, to learn Bruce's identity while he was recovering from cancer in the Lazarus Pit, since Clayface pretended to be a reanimated Boy Wonder and caused the epiphany. There is also the mystery of how in some continuities, detached parts of his body can actually develop their own sentience, like in the Harley Quinn animated series, aptly known as the Quinnverse. This is actually a thing. Yeah, you can lose his hand and then his hand will gain sentience. It's weird. And at 4, Joker's daughter. This is just a girl who finds Joker's face and then stitches it onto hers and then goes berserk. So honestly, it's not really Joker's daughter, but I believe it. The only person that I think could commit such an act is in fact the Joker. I mean, like he did. He cut it off and then put it back on for death of the family, but anyway. While maybe not as prolific and accomplished as the Joker, Joker's daughter is definitely mysterious enough to make this list. Even if I'm pretty sure plenty of people know about her, but hey, that's fine. It's about mysterious, not unknown villains, right? Not to mention the fact that she also went by Catgirl, Scarecrow, Riddler's daughter, Penguin's daughter, Card Queen, and Harley Quinn, each incarnation also calling herself the respected super person's daughter, which I have to say is going to make a family reunion real weird. But in actuality, she ended up being Duella Dent, Two-Face's daughter, I guess, apparently, which is still seemingly BS, but hey, that's why it's a mystery. Getting close to the end in at number 3, Two-Face. While we already know who Two-Face is, the entirety of Batman Earth 1 Volume 3 in essence revolves around that question. Who is Two-Face? The events of this story take place 1 month after Harvey Dent's death in Volume 2. Catwoman alerts Batman of the final shipment of explosives being driven to Gotham that night, and Gordon is alerted to the shipment and goes with Bullock to head off the attack. As the weapons arrive, Adrian lights Arkham Manor on fire, while Batman and Gordon learn that Jessica Dent is Harvey Dent, suffering from a dissociative identity disorder. Adrian reveals his allegiance to Dent and forces Batman inside of the ablazed Arkham Manor, Adrian in this scenario being Bruce's grandfather. Dent wants to destroy Gotham for taking so many lives, including that of her brothers, but Adrian claims that he wants to save Bruce's soul through cleansing fire, I guess. Batman frees himself with Catwoman's help and subdues Adrian, and learns that the shipment of explosives had been halted by Gordon, and a distraught Dent leaps to her death despite Batman's attempts to stop her, but is saved by Wayland at the last moment. Adrian emerges from Arkham Manor, his face melting as he tries to kill Batman before getting stopped by Gordon. With this crisis averted, Gotham is safe, and they realize that Adrian Arkham isn't Adrian Arkham at all. But ultimately, in at number 2, the Holiday Killer. More commonly referred to as Holiday, they are one of the principal antagonists of the story Batman The Long Halloween. A serial killer operating in Batman's early career, the murderer targets various associates and members of Gotham's crime families. Holiday's identity is only revealed in the final issue of the story, though their identity is apparently resolved, it's still left up to question. After the events of Batman Year 1, Batman, Gordon, and Harvey Dent unite to take down the Carmine Falcone, the leader of the Falcone crime family and the most powerful criminal in Gotham City. Around the same time, though, a mysterious assailant begins targeting mafiosi members and killing them. Each of the killings use the same MO. The victim shot with a .22 pistol, with a baby bottle cap used as a silencer, and a memento is left signifying each holiday, like example, a jack-o'-lantern for Halloween. Each victim is also connected either directly or indirectly to the Falcone or Maroni crime families, though at least 2 are connected to Holiday's operations. Several red herrings are also left to misdirect readers' assumptions towards other characters. The identity of Holiday is apparently revealed at the end of the series, however 3 major characters are directly connected to the Holiday identity, so you can't really be sure which one it is. Finally, and at number 1, the Joker. The Joker has undergone many revisions since his 1940 debut. The most common interpretation of the character is that of a man who, while disguised as the criminal Red Hood, is pursued by Batman and falls into a vat of chemicals that bleaches his skin, colors his hair green and his lips red, and then drives him insane. I mean, I don't know how it would bleach your skin, color your hair, and then change the color of your lips, but hey, whatever. The reasons why Joker was disguised as Red Hood and his identity before his transformation have changed over time. However, the lack of solid, consistent origin is only part of what makes this character so mysterious. During the Darkseid War storyline, Batman uses Metron's Mobius chair to find out what the Joker's real name is. The chair's answer, though, leaves Batman in disbelief. It's only revealed what it said in the DC Universe Rebirth one-shot, where Batman informs Hal Jordan that the chair told him that there were actually 3 different Jokers, not just one. This revelation was the basis for the miniseries Batman 3 Jokers. 3 Jokers reveals that the 3 Jokers who work in tandem include the Criminal, which is the methodical mastermind based on the Golden Age Joker, the Clown, which is a goofy prankster based on the Silver Age Joker, and the Comedian, a psychopathic killer based on the Modern Age Joker who is obsessed with Batman. So yeah, it's certainly a mysterious character who has stood the test of time, and that's partly why people love him so much. You knew he was going to be on this list.
Coming in at number 10, we have Eclipso, the alleged former Wrath of God. A supernatural agent of chaos with his face permanently in the shade of a constant eclipse, Eclipso claimed to be the one who carried out the biblical flood of Noah's Ark, and that he was replaced in his position as the physical embodiment of God's wrath by the Spectre, because Eclipso was just too violent and angry for the role. Older than almost every other being on Earth, Eclipso has fought many heroes over the years, and even though he no longer possesses the power of a full god, he is still an extremely dangerous magical being, and who knows what he'll do next to try and regain his power. Coming in at number 9, we have Starro the Conqueror, specifically the version seen in James Gunn's 2021 film, The Suicide Squad. Found by American astronauts during the early days of the Cold War merely drifting through space, Starro was imprisoned and tortured for 30 years by the American government on the island Corto Maltese when it was discovered that Starro possessed incredible telepathic mind control powers that the government seek to learn how to weaponize. Although he eventually had to be taken down by the Suicide Squad when his anger at being imprisoned caused him to go on a rampage, Starro's story wound up being a tragic one, as his sad last words were, "I was happy, floating, staring at the stars." Rest in peace, Starro. Hopefully there's lots of stars to look at in big, mysterious kaiju heaven. Coming in at number 8, we have the Lord of Chaos, Dominus. An enemy of Superman's, Dominus was originally a peaceful magic user on his alien homeworld, who soon became jealous when the woman he loved ascended past him and became the magical leader of their planet. Filled with envy and rage, Dominus was imprisoned in the Phantom Zone as punishment for attempting to betray his love, and over the course of his long imprisonment, Dominus soon learned to embrace the chaos of magic and managed to free himself through a gateway in Superman's Fortress of Solitude. With strength to rival the Man of Steel himself and magical abilities that can completely distort reality, Dominus is one of the most unpredictable and dangerous magic wielders in the entire DC universe. Coming in at number 7, we have the Reverse Flash. A walking time paradox, the Reverse Flash hails from a 25th century where the Flash is remembered as one of the greatest heroes of all time. Becoming obsessed with Barry Allen, the Reverse Flash was eventually able to gain control of the negative Speed Force and made it his life's goal to replace and destroy Barry after realizing he was destined to be defeated by him. Capable of traveling through time, Reverse Flash would wind up being responsible for nearly every bad thing that ever happened in Barry's life, raising a whole lot of questions about cause and effect and all sorts of timey-wimey weirdness, but mainly going to show that he's a dangerous and unpredictable villain. Coming in at number 6, we have the Court of Owls. Introduced in one of my personal favorite Batman arcs, the Court of Owls is an ancient conspiracy that has controlled Gotham City from the shadows for hundreds of years. Originally believed to just be a myth by Batman, given that he had investigated their existence as a kid after the murder of his parents, the court eventually revealed themselves when Bruce Wayne committed to super modernizing Gotham City. With multiple assassins that are seemingly a immortal in their employ, and even some members of the court itself appearing to be human-owl hybrids, there's still a lot we don't know about the Court of Owls, and I for one can't wait to find out what we'll learn next. Coming in at number 5, we have Vandal Savage. Remember how I mentioned Eclipso is one of the oldest beings on Earth in the DC universe? Well, Vandal Savage is also in the running, having lived through much of human history as an immortal warrior and conqueror. Seemingly unable to age and with incredible healing abilities in most depictions of the character, Vandal supposedly gained his incredible powers from the radiation of a comet that may have originally been connected to Superman's homeworld of Krypton. Regardless of how he gained his abilities, however, Savage has been a persistent enemy to the Justice League for literally thousands of years, always scheming for a new way to gain more power. Coming in at number 4, we have the Emperor of Shadow, aka another evil Bruce Wayne from the Dark Multiverse. In a very recent one-off issue entitled Batman/Superman Authority Special, Batman discovers a reality from the Dark Multiverse where Ra's al Ghul's plan to dominate humanity has come to pass, and the League of Shadows has become an Empire of Shadows, controlling the entire world. To make matters worse, the leader of this empire is a Bruce Wayne who gave in to Ra's al Ghul's teachings and embraced his position as the world's new emperor. While Batman and Superman were eventually able to destroy the link between this world and the regular DC universe in order to prevent an invasion, this twisted version of Bruce Wayne is still out there, likely biding his time until the next opportunity arises for the Dark Multiverse to attack the regular multiverse once more. Coming in at number 3, we have Duella Dent. Now, given her last name, you'd assume that Duella was Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face's daughter, and that was her original backstory, with her being given the name Duella because Two-Face was disappointed that he didn't have twins. However, Duella's origins are actually a lot more mysterious, as in subsequent appearances, she's claimed to be the daughter of the Joker, the Penguin, Catwoman, Scarecrow, Riddler, and even Doomsday. Given the extreme unlikelihood that Duella could somehow be all of these villains' daughters, this crazy killer's origins may still be a mystery, but definitely don't make her any less dangerous. Coming in at number 2, we have to go with Batman's iconic nemesis, the Joker. When you're making a list about mysterious villains, the Clown Prince of Crime just has to be on there, because in a way, even more extreme than Duella, we still don't know what this guy's really all about. There have been attempts over the years to give the Joker some sort of backstory, like the Red Hood incident, or when the DC Universe briefly had 3 entirely separate Jokers, but these stories always seem to land on deciding that the Joker's true origin is ambiguous at best. But in all honesty, giving 100% certain backstory to the Joker would be betraying much of his character, and leaving a bit of ambiguity, well, that's probably for the best. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Perpetua, the dark goddess of the multiverse. The DC multiverse has faced many threats over the course of its existence, with the highest stakes being reserved for events labeled as a crisis. But beyond the scope of even the Crisis on Infinite Earths is Perpetua, the mother of the Anti-Monitor, and a being that, until recently, was locked behind the Source Wall at the very edge of the DC universe. The creator of every story we've ever been told throughout all of DC Comics, Perpetua altered and manipulated the multiverse for her own purposes and to thwart the mysterious hands that seem to be even beyond her own power level. We still don't know everything there is to know about Perpetua, even if she was eventually able to have her plans stopped, and the sheer scale of her ambitions makes her the most mysterious DC villain of all.
Number 10, Onslaught. It feels a little weird to call Onslaught mysterious in retrospect, but back in the day, this was a villain that was made to kind of be mysterious. For a long time, we didn't actually know who Onslaught was, although it did seem pretty obvious. I mean, look at this character design. The same kind of mystery involving Onslaught's true identity was recently revived during the Reign of X era in the comics, where Onslaught returned in the series Way of X. It took until Onslaught Revelation until Onslaught's identity was truly explained and dealt with. Now, I won't spoil that mystery for you if you haven't read Way of X yet, and Onslaught Revelation, as both are great comics, and the Mystery is one that is actually pretty enticing, so you should definitely go read it. Especially considering how unmysterious Onslaught has become since the 90s when they were first introduced, but we're bringing the Mystery back with this one, so yay. There's gonna be people that are gonna be like, I know who Onslaught is, and I'm gonna be like, but do you? But do you know? Because you might not know right now. Number 9. Crime Master. A smaller villain whose identity was a mystery involving clues meant to misdirect you. Oddly enough, this isn't the only Crime Master that has existed in the comics, which I guess makes sense. After all, Crime Master is a pretty sweet villain name, so we wouldn't want to get rid of that. Don't just want to throw that one away. Still, this was the first appearance of a character with that mantle over in the land of Spider-Man and of Marvel. This version of the villain first appeared in Amazing Spider-Man issue number 26. We were led to believe he was a seemingly reformed criminal returned to crime and fellow Daily Bugle employee Frederick Foswell, formerly known as Crime Boss Big Man. But in the end, Crime Master was revealed to be a criminal of no note really in regards to the world of Spider-Man. The mystery only went on for 2 issues before we learned of his true identity as Nick Lucky Lewis, a criminal we hadn't ever interacted with until these issues of The Amazing Spider-Man issues 26 and 27. At least, I don't think so. I don't think we'd interacted with them before. However, this also wouldn't be the only Crime Master, the more recognizable version of the villain also being a surprising reveal of Bennett Brandt, Betty Brandt's brother. But that's a story for another time. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn more about villains that are shrouded in mystery or bring mystery to the comics with them, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. A secret thumbs up. But not so secret because, you know, we'll see that you clicked like. Well, we won't see that you clicked like, but someone did. Ooh, mystery. Number 8. Veronkey the Squirrel Queen. Maybe one of the most mysterious villains of all time has to be Queen Veronkey, also Empress of the Skrull Empire. Or at one point she was Empress of the Skrull Empire. Although not an undisputably celebrated ruler amongst the Skrulls at the time, not without opposition, still, Veronkey managed to secretly invade Earth and infiltrate the planet's mightiest heroic team, the Avengers. For years, Veronkey went undercover as Jessica Drew, taking her place as early as before the events of House of M, and revealing herself only years later during the Secret Invasion story. The reveal that Spider-Woman for years had actually been Veronkey in disguise, with Spider-Woman's power set and memories successfully impersonating her all these years, was a startling shock for readers and fans of the character. Number 7. Big Man the Second and Crime Master the Second. These two are really a duo package. Of course, this time around we were once again left wondering who they were, as Big Man and Crime Master had been dealt with previously in the comics. The mystery involved another team-up from Marvel Team-Up issue 39 and 40. While we pondered who Big Man could really be, we'd once again be misled by the character's name and their masculine appearance. Ooh. Turns out that the second Big Man was actually Janice Foswell, the daughter of Frederick Foswell, convinced that Spider-Man was to blame for her father's fate and seeking revenge. However, even more mysterious, her partner Crime Master was surprisingly her fiance Nick Lewis Jr. Now I say surprising because I don't think Janice herself was even aware of the true identity of her partner. Nick Jr. was of course also out for revenge on Spider-Man for what had happened to his father, Nick Lucky Lewis, the formerly unknown criminal who was revealed to be the original Crime Master. Gasp! So much mystery. Number 6. Hobgoblin. Speaking of villains with super secret and much debated identities, that is also Hobgoblin. For a long time in the comics, the true identity of Hobgoblin was a topic of much debate, with everyone comparing their theories and running polls amongst their friends for who was considered the most likely true identity of Hobgoblin. It was revealed later on to be Ned Leeds behind the mask, although even then, he wasn't the real Hobgoblin, but only a decoy brainwashed and used by the real Hobgoblin, Roderick Kingsley. Ned Leeds, Peter's good friend, would later end up dying tragically as a result of becoming a victim of Hobgoblin. Man, being friends with Peter Parker seems like it would be really dangerous, to be honest. Like, I know it wasn't really Peter's fault that Ned became a Hobgoblin stand-in, but just connecting some dots there, like, doesn't seem pretty good. Also, there seems to be a good chance that you might become evil, or go insane, or just die if you're friends with Peter Parker, so just watch out if you ever meet Spider-Man in real real life and he's like, let's be friends, maybe be like, maybe I'm gonna take a rain check on that. Number 5, Power Broker. Power Broker has always been a mysterious figure, and not just in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where fans of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series spent some time trying to decipher their true identity. Even now, some people actually still don't believe that the reveal that we got in that series is even the true one, and some out there theorize that there could still be a Power Broker working behind the scenes and above Sharon Carter and simply using her as a front for their true identity. So, you know, Sharon's working for the Power Broker, but she's not really the Power Broker. In the comics, Power Broker has always been a villain shrouded in mystery, and even today we still do not know the identity of the modern day Power Broker. Now initially Power Broker was Curtis Jackson, but even before his death in 2012, there was a new Power Broker out there on the scene, making their first appearance in Avengers The Initiative Annual in 2008, whose identity remains unknown, I believe, till this very day. I don't think we've found out yet who they are. More than 10 years later, like, that's a long time to be like, who knows? It's someone. Watch, it's gonna be another like Crime Master situation when we do find out, and they'll be like, it's this guy. You don't know him, but it's a person. Number 4, Kang the Conqueror. Kang is one of the most mysterious villains I think that we have in Marvel Comics even to this day. He's a character who has lived countless other lives and had many different identities over the years. And even after many of these have been revealed, he still has managed to surprise us in the modern day with the reveal that Kang was originally the hero Iron Lad. And in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when it comes to Kang, we are just scratching the surface of this character. There is still so much yet for us to uncover and explore with this villain, who I have no doubt will continue to be equally mysterious in this universe as we learn more and more about all his other variants and just what exactly their intentions and their motivations are. Welcome to the multiverse. Number 3, Mysterio. Mysterio has mystery basically in their name, so obviously we gotta include him. Mysterio is also well known for his illusions and tricks. This often means he can create mysteries not just in terms of disguising himself, but also in disguising any plot of his to seem like something that is really happening. In other words, you know, he's all about illusions. He almost succeeded in driving Daredevil Matt Murdock crazy with his illusions when he made him think a child in his care was actually the Antichrist. Fortunately, in the end, Matt was able to see through Mysterio's illusion, but it was proven through this story just how hard that can actually be to do. Number 2, Chameleon. Chameleon is a villain known for his ability to disguise himself as just about anyone and convince you that he is truly them. He was also the one in part behind the plot to convince Peter his parents were still alive, only for him to learn that they were actually robots. Dun dun dun. However, his disguise skills and mysterious ways are still no match for Mary Jane, keep that in mind, who almost immediately recognized that he wasn't really Peter Parker when he tried to impersonate him. So no stealing kisses for Chameleon, which honestly, thank goodness, Mary Jane has been through enough in the comics. She did not need that tacked on to her like long list of awful experiences in her life. Number 1, Loki. The only thing that could possibly make Loki slightly unmysterious, I guess, is the fact that he's pretty much always up to something. So it's come to the point that you kind of expect Loki to be pulling tricks and disguising himself. However, even then, with this expectation there have been many times throughout the years that the trickster has still managed to pull the wool over all of our eyes. Maybe it's because he's so charming and oddly lovable. We want to believe and trust him at times, and yet we never truly can. But still, it doesn't stop us from wanting to or trying to, you know? Loki has pulled off some pretty impressive feats when it comes to convincing people his lies, tricks, or illusions were, you know, not any of that. And he's also done a good job of convincing us of his sincerity when he really was sincere, like when he was Kid Loki, who really was inherently quite good in terms of his alignment. It's actually the goodness within him that I guess makes him so hard to read, so mysterious, and really so dangerous, because it gives us hope that he can be redeemed and his intentions this time might actually be good, when in most cases, they're not really. Except for when they are, so I mean, yeah, he is pretty tricksy in that way.
Number 10, The Question. We can go with either Vic Sage or Renee Montoya for this point, but But either way, being mysterious is kind of this character's MO. The Question first debuted in Blue Beetle #1 back in 1967, and was modeled off of a classic pulp noir figure and actually one of Steve Ditko's earlier creations, Mr. A. His or her appearance is striking in that they have no face, wearing a special adhesive mask to well mask their features. It renders them instantly mysterious to all who see them from the start, visually asking the question, just who is that? It shrouds them in mystery, and the Question loves a good mystery. He often operates behind the scenes in the shadows, gathering information, sorting clues, and looking to find the big picture. It's why sometimes his depiction can veer a bit into conspiracy theorist territory, particularly on the JLU. However, the Question adds something unique to DC. You don't have many characters like this, powerless yet rich in knowledge and operating in a tense but not necessarily always overtly action-packed way. He's definitely mysterious, that's for sure. Number 9. Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate dates all the way back to the Golden Age from More Fun Comics #55 back in 1940, and is as magical as they come, and has had a very convoluted set of backstories as a result, but this is part of what makes him so mysterious. From starting off as the mystic Naboo who trains Kent Nelson, to then having his powers transferred into the helmet of Dr. Fate, he's a bit of a character on the fringes for more casual fans, so it's very much a who? What? And so he can come across as quite mysterious, and even in universe people are often awed by his abilities as a guardian of order, which in itself is quite vague and hence mysterious. Order opposes chaos, yes, but what does that always mean? Because of the mystical magic helmet, Dr. Fate is an alias that has been held by many wearers, which can also make the Doctor appear different, and any being operating on a quasi-other-realmy scale appears quite mystical to us mortals. Also, just side note, that Young Justice episode where Wally is like, I don't believe in magic. Nonsense. In a superhero world, that's just forced conflict. Number 8. Rorschach. Coming from Alan Moore's Dark Age solidifying work, The Watchmen. Rorschach left quite the impression on those who read the series. And the fact that he is mysterious is a huge part of his character, from the swirling inkblot mask designed to make the reader question what they are seeing, as well as reflect some of the damage to his psyche and also the questions of his motives, which are no question to him, or to the readers who agree with his philosophy. The mystery of who Rorschach is ultimately ends up paying off big time for the reader, when they discover that he was in far more of the story than they thought. Since Watchmen was brought into the DC universe officially, there have been more Rorschachs, but none of them are Walter Kovacs. Definitely not in terms of how interesting they are. What are your thoughts on that expanded Watchmen universe? Alan Moore hates them, but that doesn't mean you have to. Number 7. The Phantom. This falls much more into the who is that category for a lot of people, but he's coming into the public domain soon, so get excited. The Phantom was a newspaper strip that began in February of 1936, so pre-Golden Age. He's a pre-Golden Age hero. However, in canon, the Phantom is mysterious. He is at first known as the Ghost Who Walks, and is set to defend the jungles of Bangala, a made-up African country. However, the Phantom is not one person, but several, a hero who passes the mantle down through the ages. You even get an oath. I swear to devote my life to the destruction of piracy, greed, cruelty, and injustice in all their forms, and my sons and their sons shall follow me. So, do you get powers? Is there a magic crystal skull? No, you're just some guy. But hey, you get a lot of lore and build up around you, so bonus points for that. Because of the story's mythology, this means you can also flash back to past Phantoms. There was also a 90s film that most people have forgotten, but not me, starring Billy Zane. Number 6. Shadow Man. The Shadow Man first debuts as the Shadow Man in Shadow Man #1 in 1992. And yes, we're talking about a hero from Valiant Comics. I know some of you have been asking for a long time. Shadow Man is actually extremely popular in comic circles, and yet outside of them, many people have never heard of him. Shadow Man is Jack Boniface, and he plays the saxophone, but sadly does not have a saxophone hologram a la Nightman. Shadow Man transforms into such when he is drugged one night at a bar and wakes up with a mysterious mark on his neck and a thirst for vengeance. He learns from his housekeeper who practices voodoo that a doorway has been ripped into his soul, and he will arise when shadows fall. He is extremely mysterious, even at times to himself, and while his stories are just cool, and he looks cool. If you haven't read The Shadow Man, check him out. It's dark, occult, and unique. Add something different to your repertoire. Also, he's a character of color for those who are looking to expand their collections in that way. Number 5. Shade, the Changing Man. He first appeared in Shade, the Changing Man #1 back in 1977, and was branded as a new kind of superhero. Always a great start. Shadow was initially a fugitive from another dimension, and would eventually team up with the Suicide Squad, the first iteration where some of the members were actually suicidal. Deadshot was not okay. Shade initially didn't have a connection to the DC universe, but became one of those characters who was folded in. Shade was a secret agent in his home dimension, but was framed for treason and sentenced to death. He came to Earth to clear his name. But then Shade would change again and be folded into Vertigo, and was now a poet sent to Earth to stop the tides of madness, and his past origin would be explained as him coming to Earth to amuse himself. He would be killed off and brought back many times in various forms as different characters, and would become a cult favorite like many Vertigo comics of the time. His comic would also discuss topics other comics wouldn't, like transgender issues. It's an interesting read. For characters in universe, it was very much who is Shade? What does he want? Which definitely makes the Shade mysterious. Number 4. Batman. Now hold on, hear me out. We all know who Batman is, you say. What's wrong with you? Well, depending upon when you are in canon, Batman is very mysterious to the people of Gotham City and those outside of it. There have been periods of his history when he operates so far in the shadows that people aren't even sure if he really exists, or if he's just some kind of urban legend thought up by police to scare criminals. In the New 52, when he meets Hal Jordan for the first time, he expresses the same sentiment, the belief that he was just a rumor. A man running around dressed like a bat? Yeah, I can see why you wouldn't believe it. But also, no, not if it was during the supervillain time period. If it's just corrupt Gotham time, then maybe. Still, Batman is the Dark Knight, and to those he hunts, he is quite mysterious. The mystery of who is the Batman, solved by only a core few, haunts the city. Also, I'll give it to comic Hush Riddler. He deserved to keep that knowledge. The comic book Hush, not Hush Riddler, they're different things. Bane 2. Props to Bane. Classic Bane, not neck snapping Bane. Back snapping Bane. Number 3. Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing has had a couple of iterations, first appearing in the 70s, but the version most people remember is Alan Moore's run in the 80s, which would revamp the character and turn him into a tragic yet horrific figure, a monster with a heart. The Swamp Thing is quite mysterious to the DC universe. Who is he? Is he even a person? What is his function? What is the green? How does he maintain it? The Swamp Thing has been a man, a concept, a man again, an earthbound elemental. It's been a journey with the Swamp Thing, that's for sure. You're never quite sure when he's gonna show up. Of late, post-Rebirth, he's become almost like a mystical entity invoked when someone is set to harm the Earth, or by Constantine when he feels like it. Moore's Swamp Thing is really good, but also very depressing. Do you want to see an entire town wiped out by vampires and cry about it? Then read Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. Number 2. The Hanged Man. Astro City time and creeping up the list. Cause well, the Hangman is mysterious. It is his entire MO. Why is he there? I don't know. What does he do? Well, he protects the neighborhood of Shadow Hill. He's a floating shadowed specter with a noose around his neck and a burlap sack over his head. He's been active since the 19th century and has powers of some kind. He is drawn to those who have suffered and those in need. So despite his appearance, he is actually a comfort to those in Astro City. Well, some of them. They're also still a bit afraid of him. He appears to be able to alter memories in order to alleviate trauma, because when Astro City suffers a giant multiverse event that results in the erasure of one timeline and the creation of a new one man remembers his past life and his wife who no longer exists. The Hanged Man regularly visits him and offers him a chance to help forget, but he chooses not to, instead living with both memories. The Hanged Man is fond of him. He's just around and I love it. You need characters like that. Also, proper grammatical use of the word hanged. People are hanged. You hung a shirt. Different. Number 1. The Phantom Stranger. A character so mysterious that for years his powers have been undefined. His name is a mystery twice. The Phantom Stranger first debuted in The Phantom Stranger number 1 back in 1952. And from the start he was designed to be mysterious. He had no official origin and still doesn't, instead having a rotating origin of 4, all of them equally likely. So that's fine, you can kind of choose your favorite if you feel he needs an origin. You got Caught in a Time Loop, a man who killed himself and was denied entry to heaven, a fallen angel, Judas, but that one is an outlier. Over time, the Phantom Stranger has grown to be a being of cosmic power and contemporary to the Spectre, though they both have very different approaches. They do clash and we had to do the whole heroes as chess pieces thing. The Phantom Stranger shows up when needed and often unasked, but you're never sure when or where he'll show up. People just accept it at this point, like, oh, the Phantom Stranger, must be serious.